Welcome to another spotlight video here at MTGCardmarket.com. I'm Emmanuel Tutor. This time it's my first modern spotlight video. We had Grand Prix Charlotte last weekend and the top 8 looked quite different from what we were used to the last couple of months, especially in the Eldrazi Greys. And there was one deck in particular that I found quite interesting and figured I'll do a spotlight on, which was the Bant company deck that also features the Knight of the Reliquary Retreat to Coralham combo. And yeah, I think the deck's quite interesting. I haven't seen a similar deck yet, and Eli Kassis, I think his name is pronounced, who piloted the deck, apparently also did pretty well with it, ending up in the top 8, losing the quarterfinals. So yeah, let's take a look at the deck. The deck is reasonably straightforward. First of all, we have 8 mana dogs to accelerate into the 3 drops and company and stuff, which makes a lot of sense, since otherwise the deck would be pretty slow. So the best opening hands are the ones that have one of those 2 creatures in it to accelerate into. Then we have a bunch of 2 drops in case we don't have an accelerant, or to attack with the Hierarch, or play like another accelerant and a 2 drop on turn 2, for example. The 2 drops are 2 Scavenging Ooze, 1 Tarmogoyf, mostly as like additional 2 drop for like in the later game, or a cheap thing to fetch with the 1 of Court of Calling, because in the mid game it's often like 4 or 5 power, but the deck is not supporting Tarmogoyf well enough to run 4 Tarmogoyfs, because early on it's often gonna be like a 1-2 through like a fetch land, and then purely depending on what the opponent does, how big it's gonna be. So it's too unreliable. But having 1 for like in the late game is still a cheap big threat. I mean, I don't think the deck needs it, so like if there's need for like if there's need to make room for something else, that's definitely a card I could see leaving, but it's a very solid option. It's also a good hit for company in the mid game, for example. Next we have 3 Qasali Bright Mages, which are just very versatile. There's a lot of things to be killed in the format. There's Blood Moons, there's all the cards in Affinity, there's Nexi and Wild Defiances and stuff in Infect. Excuse me. There's Pyromancer's Ascension in Storm. There's Retreat to Coralham in some decks, and so on and so forth. There's just a lot of things to be targeted. Ether Vials in White X, Vial-based disruptive decks, and so on. There's really a lot of targets, and it's also a pretty good creature. It's just a 2 mana 3/3 on offense, or even like allows us to attack with the birds that we had on turn 1 for 1 if we don't have a 3 drop, or even turns our Hierarch into a 2/3 attacker. The deck can have surprisingly aggressive draws with like Hierarch into Qasali, attack for 2 on turn 2, doing kind of a zoo impression. And then we have 4 Voices, which are just really good. They protect the combo indirectly and make it more awkward for the opponent to break off the combo. Lets us main phase Collected Company against decks with counter spells to at least get a token if they stop the company, and so on. And yeah, it's also something that like helps survive early on against decks like Burn and stuff. Then we have the 3 drops. There's 2 Course of Kruphix, which is kind of an interesting choice, but also solid. Like the deck has a lot of like good lands, so drawing 3 lands can get you more value than usual. Gaining some life helps you stay alive against faster decks, and it's also a good company hit. Same for Witness, allows us to get back company or the 1 of Court, or sorry about that, or one of the 2 paths to exiles to use them again. So especially nice with company, obviously, though. Hitting a witness and something else and returning a company is a huge blow in grindier games. Then we have 1 kitchen things as another company hit and court target in case we need some extra life and some more board presence that's hard to deal with. It's not super impressive, but it's a solid thing to have access to, especially together with a Gavany Township in the deck that we can tutor for, which makes this return infinite times basically. Over and over, every time it returns you just put a counter on it to make it have persist again. And the heart of the deck for Knight of the Reliquary, which combo with Retreat to Corner Helm, growing extremely large, and potentially, depending on how much life we have, also tapping a certain amount of blockers to finish off the opponent. Unlike the decks that are like very focused on the combo, this has no way of giving protection, trample, or evasion to the knight, so if they have too many blockers, it just makes the knight huge, but doesn't kill the opponent, which can sometimes be problematic, but the deck can't really support like a Kassis very well, so I think it has to like stay that way for now. Oh, and I forgot another 2-drop, a Spellskite, which is obviously a good company hit, and all of those 1-offs are virtual 2-off thanks to the 1 Court of Calling. I could even see like fitting a 2nd court somehow, for example, and I'm skeptical about the amount of removal. Like maybe the 2-pass main deck is enough, but I feel like in the 75 it's probably not gonna be enough. But we will see in the games later. And yeah, the mana base has all kinds of utility lands, a township, 2 Ghost Quarter, which actually sorry, seems a bit much to me. Deck is a bit high on colorless lands. But then again, it's basically green-white, just splashing for retreat, so I guess it can afford it, we will see. But not sure what you want need 2 Ghost Quarters for in that format. And there's a Horizon Canopy to have some extra value to search up with Knight, or like Flood Protection. And Westvale Abbey to turn into Ormondal, because the deck can create a reasonable amount of creatures like mana dogs that you don't need anymore, Eternal Witness, front sides or tokens of Voice of Resurgence, 1/2 of a Kitchen Finks, and so on. So the deck can use this in like stalled out games against other mid-range decks. And the sideboard is a bunch of 1-offs for the 1 court and or the companies. Burnt and Forged Tender against Pyroclasm type effects, and generally nice against burn as a blocker also. Kataki against Affinity, obviously. Eidolon of Rhetoric against decks like Storm, Living End, and Ad Nauseam. All kinds of like spell-based combo decks basically. Linvala for other company type utility creature decks. Some counter magic against problematic spells. Honestly not sure why there's 2 Twisted Image in the board. I mean, sure, it's kind of nice in the mirror where you can kill opposing birds and hierarchs, like against Absent Company, for example. It also kills Spellskite and Hierarch against Infect. What else does it do? It's also okay against Affinity, killing Ornithopter and Signal Pest, but it just seems like such a like marginal value card that doesn't excuse me, doesn't really deal with cards that are actually problematic. I mean, I'm not sold, especially as a 2-off, and I think it might rather just be like something higher impact, unless I'm missing something. Maybe there are things that it does that I just don't think of right now. But just killing mana dogs for value against other company decks and some marginal stuff against Infect and Affinity does not seem that great to me. Especially since Ornithopter, for example, is like not that big of a deal. Not the way you lose against Affinity. You lose to their edge champions and or their granular bladings, for example. Surgical Extraction is, I assume, mostly for top the sword combo to get. Oh, that was a bit fortunate. Magic Online just apparently shut down because of the downtime. Well, we're mostly through with the sideboard, so let's focus on the games when Magic Online is back up again. Just a note on Surgical Extraction, is mostly there to get rid of the Sword of the Meek, so they can't make infinite tokens. And yeah, the rest of the sideboard is just a couple more bullets, like Milira against Infect to hit with Company or search with the one chord, and Pithing Needle also against top the sword combo, and to some extent also against decks like Tron, to name Oblivion Stone, Khan Liberated, or Ugin the Spirit Dragon, for example, or simply the Expedition map to keep them from hitting Tron in the first place. Okay, sorry about that awkward interruption of the downtime. I'll see you after the downtime for the games.